Hello everybody and welcome to the first reading vlog for my personal readathon, GameNightAthon. So I am actually filming this a little bit early. So in less than a week, so it's now Sunday, on Saturday we will be starting my readathon, GameNightAthon, and I have given you guys the power to decide on what I read. Not really what I read, but you have the power to decide on my prompts. And so at this point in time, it's quite strongly in favor of me reading the orange prompt, which is a mood read, which is also corresponding to a book of 100 pages. And now I do have a book in mind, but I have a different idea at this point in time, and that is I basically have the goal to finish all my books before they are 1 year on my shelves. And I have two books which are very much approaching that date now. I mean, I had three, but I just finished the third one, so I still have two that I need to start and finish before the 7th of July. But they're also two massive books, so if I were to start them in July, for example, then, that's so many extra pages for a prompt compared to how many I need to read for that prompt. So I'm gonna try and start both of these, hopefully get either one of them done, or get a decent chunk done in both of them so that I can still count both of them in the month of July. But so I'm going to be reading the Black Coast by Mike Brooks. This is probably more going to be towards the end of the week. I'm hoping to kind of get started in the other one first. But so if need be, I can kind of count this for the orange prompt, but we will see. As I indicated, we're kind of going to have to go on a whim to see how much I can get done throughout the week, and so how far along I will get before the actual start of GameNightAthon. And then the other one is also an epic fantasy, and that is Kai. I mean, is it an epic fantasy? It's a myth retelling in any case. But so both of these can count for orange, and so both of these could potentially be the ones that I'm gonna use for my mood read prompt. I think I'm going to start with Kai. When I have 101 pages to go, I'm going to put it down, go to Black Coast, and then hopefully get Black Coast done potentially, or like depending on what happens towards the end of the month, I'll also have part of the Black Coast left in order for me to then potentially have to count that book as well. It could also count for like a blue prompt, for example, if need be. Kai can kind of count for a yellow prompt as well, I guess, though, I mean, orange is definitely much more prominent than yellow on it. But so, yeah, we'll just have to see. But aside from that, I'm actually also still reading Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. Supposedly by the 1st of July, we will have a live show on that, though I think it's probably going to be the 8th of July. So we'll see. I'm just desperately trying to get as much of these things read as possible. I will check in with you guys again on Friday evening when I should know what's happening with these books. Which ones am I reading for the readathon? Hello everyone, it's the 1st of July, so it is actually the start of my readathon. It's also my birthday. So when it comes to my first read for GameNightAthon, I am going to be going with Kai. Did not get as far as I was planning to. Like, yesterday I was just not in the mood for it, I'd been hoping to finish off my reading on the Thursday so that on Friday I could kind of take a chill day, which didn't end up happening. On Friday I did get quite a lot of reading in still, but mainly in the Black Coast, because that's an audiobook, so it requires less physical activity, I guess. I can more easily combine it with other stuff. And so, yes, I've been reading more of that, so I only have 200 pages left in that, whereas I was thinking I was probably going to end up with 300. Most in like the most ideal scenario, so we definitely got more in that done than I was intending to, which is great. But in Kai I didn't get to like the 100 mark. I have like a 170 left probably. So yeah, that is going to be my first read, but I am going to start my day off with some pancakes because of my birthday, and then I'm going to go and head out into town, probably buy myself some like waffles for my birthday, maybe get some fruit, and probably I'll also buy some plants because I have some empty plant pots that need filling. And what better day to treat myself to some new plants than on my birthday? So I hear my cat outside of my door right now. She is wanting to wish me a happy birthday as well. So let's get this day up and rolling. Hey guys, just finished my first readathon sprints and just want to say thank you again to everybody who was there to support me for the first ones. I had a good time. I am 55 pages away from finishing Kaikei. I did already finish the amount of pages I need for the 2 spaces that I can fill with it, but I will still definitely just finish this one before I go into book number 2. I did also get a gift, so I want to thank Daniela for getting me So Lucky by Nicola Griffith, and Raf from, I want to try and say, I will have his name on the screen because I'm not entirely sure anymore, and definitely not about how to pronounce it. But so it was his recommendation on Discord that made me want to get this one, so made me add it to my wish list. So I am very much looking forward to potentially picking this up, this readathon as well, because it is shortish. And so this one also features disability representation. So for example, if you guys might choose disability representation, this is an option, though I also have another option lined up for that. But yeah, I did treat myself, but as I said, I was going to try and get waffles, and unfortunately I did not get waffles because the waffle lady wasn't there. But I got myself some plants. I don't actually know which plants they are, so if you recognize some of these plants, definitely let me know. I mean, I know what an orchid looks like, but the other two, I'm not fully sure. For one of them, I've been given a suggestion, but feel free to repeat. And then I also got myself a nostalgia gift because these are marzipan balls covered with dark chocolate that are fit together as if it's like a bunch of grapes. And this is something that my dad used to get for my grandmother, and I absolutely adored them. They're super expensive though, so I only got them for this is the first time I ever bought them, but I just felt like treating myself to them. So I'm gonna be enjoying those, but maybe tomorrow because I'm going to be making dinner now and then I'm going to the movies. So just got back from celebrating my birthday with my family. I got some gifts. So I got a gift card, not really gift card, but a fidelity card from my local cinema. So very happy with that because it had been on my wish list and I'm so happy that I got it this time. And then my sister got me Maracuja Genever, which is a Dutch sort of gin, I guess let's call it like that. It's a Dutch type of spirit, and this is basically the type of spirit that they used to have in the bar that me and my sister went to when we were going out. We are differentiated by 5 years, so we didn't go out at the same time, but we were always going to that same bar, and Maracuja Geneva is what we used to drink there, and they don't have it anymore, but my sister found it, and then she also got me a puzzle. So once I finish my very annoying, difficult to create puzzle that I'm currently working on, this is the next one that I'll be working on. Alright, so I finished my first book. I finished Kaikei. And it's a 3.5 star. I definitely had a good time with it, but it's also I have my issues with it. Now, part of my issues just stem from the fact that I don't know enough about the source material, so I cannot really see, I can assume how it kind of plays with the Ramayana, but to some extent that's just assumptions, and I do think I want to read the Ramayana now to kind of see what it does in fact do with it. But I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the changes that it makes and the way that it kind of more or less fully turns things around in terms of the protagonist Kaikei, and kind of puts what I suppose is the hero of the Ramayana in as the sort of villain to some extent, whereas of course on the other hand that kind of showing the sort of every story has two sides aspect, and the fact that the victors are the ones who, and the way how history is often kind to those who end up being on top. And but yeah, I definitely enjoyed it a whole lot. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was an interesting perspective to look from, the perspective of Kaikei. However, part of the reason why one character is kind of demonized is something that is very similar to things that Kaikei herself does. So that kind of left me feeling like, okay, why are we examining this in him or like criticizing him that in this character, whereas we're not fully examining the way that she has been using that same sort of a power. So I've been left feeling a little bit conflicted when it comes to this one. But then, second prompt, I have three options. So, based on me completing the orange prompt for the first role, I now have choices between the green prompt, red prompt, or yellow prompt. I gave you guys the choices for that. It was either a new to you author, a book set in a country you would love to visit, or a found family. The tropes, the books that I specifically chose for these are, so for the new to you author, I chose The Black Coast by Mike Brooks, which I'm currently reading, so that would have been perfect. Second option was Chai Time at Cinnamon Gardens by Shankari Chandran. So this is for the found family trope. And then for the country setting, I chose Love in a Big City by Sang Park, which is taking place within Korea. And this is actually the one that has overwhelmingly won. So this is the one that I'll be picking up next, and I will be putting my next community post online so that you guys can choose for the next prompt that I will be reading from. But so yeah, just checking. But yeah, it's still very much a win for the red prompt. So 62% of you guys voted for me to read a book set in a country I would love to visit. So here we go. Love in a Big City by Sang Park. This is a book that has been on my Kindle for a while. Since my Kindle is an old one, it does not have like color on it. It's this particular cover does have red on it, so it is also one that is a color match. All right, so I have yet to finish book number 2, but I am currently like going to be checking the results for book number 3. Book number 3, I have 3 prompt options. So first off, we have Yellow, which is a mood read. Originally, I was going to put Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang as my choice there, but I think I'm going to go with The Black Coast by Mike Brooks because I am about to be finishing it, and so that way I can immediately count it. Plus, an alternative cover for this book actually is yellow, so I can count it for the cover prompt as well. And then the second option was a reread, for which I was going to choose Chronicle of an Announced Death. Cannot pronounce anything. Chronicle of an Announced Death. I think that is the title because I actually have it in Spanish, by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And then the third option was to read the blue prompt, which was the 2018 release. I was so convinced you guys are going to go for 2018 release, but if nothing has changed since I checked it a few hours ago, it is actually Mood Read. You guys are being kind to me and allowing me to make my own choices, because that would be the second time you guys have voted Mood Read, so you guys are actually being really, really kind to me. So with that, the Black Coast will be my third prompt, and I'm actually like 2 hours away from finishing at this point in time. So a few more days on the commute, this should be done. And so I'm gonna actually publish the next poll already so that I know what I'll be picking up next.
What's this? Is this Dad's idea of breakfast?
No, we eat that in the morning all the time.
You eat them in the morning all the time.
I just finished another book. I finished The Black Coast by Mike Brooks. This is actually the book number 3 that I'm supposed to finish, but I finished it as book number 2. But I will wait to log it until I've finished book number 2. But so I really enjoyed this one. I was hoping to absolutely fall in love with it, and that didn't end up happening, but it is definitely an interesting one. Like, it is more about like the meeting of two cultures and kind of finding like a compromise between those two. And what I really enjoyed about that is the fact that there's not like a superior culture between these two. There's like the culture that is presented as being more sort of like civilized, let's say, compared to like what are the raiders basically, because let's just go back and tell you the basic premise. Basically, the book starts off when a town at the seaside is getting raided by this group of raiders. However, they are being led by this woman called Sarah. I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, right? Sarah's at the stupa, and so she wants to find a new home for her people and tries to break from the past history of violence and raiding by asking whether they can peacefully come ashore or not. And so this you have the raider crew, which is kind of considered to be, like the culturally inferior ones compared to the ones that are domesticated in this seaside town. However, we see on both sides we see positives and negatives, and we see ways in which one of these civilizations is more advanced than the other, but then in other aspects the other civilization is more advanced than the other. And so it's very much showing how our opinions or our viewpoints on certain things, or what we consider cultured, what we consider progressive, is very different. Like, it's very much dependent on what we've been told all of our lives, on the culture that we grew up in. And so when one of these cultures might feel like it is backwards to have gay men and lesbian women have relationships with one another, the other culture will consider that it's backwards not to allow them to do so. And on the other hand, the culture that is very accepting of same sex relationships then has a very hierarchical view of the roles of women versus men, for example, whereas the other culture that has huge issues with queer rights is a culture that does see women and men alike, for example. So it shows how these cultures are on different scales of the progressive scale depending on different issues. So I really thought that that was very interesting to look into, to see like more of an equal portrayal between these two different societies, whereas a lot of times we would just see a progressive society being attacked by a lowly society, and maybe if there's some commingling, it is kind of like to the advancement of the lower society, whereas here it is growing to understand the benefits and the weaknesses and the strengths of each one of these individual societies, and kind of merging the strengths to get to a stronger overall society in the end. So I really enjoyed that aspect to it. It didn't fully satisfy me in terms of its storyline, but hopefully we can still get there. There are certain parts of this story or certain parts of this world that I immediately found very interesting, and we didn't spend a lot of time with those. But considering the title of book number 2, which I think is called The Splinter King or The Splinter Prince, not entirely sure which one anymore, we'll probably be spending a lot more time and attention on that side of things. So I'm very much like hopeful that the things I was kind of missing in this one will kind of be rectified in book number 2. Alright guys, I finally went running, did my first start to run because I signed up for a running event at work where we each takes turns running a different distance. So I will do the short distance, which is 5 kilometers. I have run this in the past, but it's been like years. I think in 2015 I ran 10K and then I stopped. So this was horrible, but I'm very proud that I did it, because I was like having back and forth about whether I would do it in the morning or not, like 20,000 times this morning, and in the end I just did it, and so I'm so happy that I did it, and now I got to be productive before my working hours, so I get to feel good about myself, and mostly I get to take a shower now. Alright guys, I just did sprints, so I actually started, is it today? No, yesterday probably, right? Has to be. I feel like, yeah, yesterday, but only like really late in the evening. I started my 4th book, which you guys voted for it to be the red prompt, which was to read a book featuring cannibalism. This was no surprise, but I chose the book Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. I'm hoping it has cannibalism in it, because I found it on a trigger warning website. It would not surprise me given the premise for this book, but yeah, I haven't come across it yet, and I'm halfway through now, but I mean, it could be like towards the ending, maybe more like So yeah, the books that you left aside was The Day the Sun Died by Jan Lienke, which would have been the choice if you would have chosen for the yellow prompt. The green prompt was Paul Pick, so I would have chosen a few different ones there, which would have been more last minute, so I didn't have to make that choice. The orange one would have been Terminal Boredom by Izumi Suzuki, and then the blue one would have been All the Lovers in the Night by Miko Kawakami. So actually you chose the one non-translated fiction that I'd set aside for myself, but it's perfectly fine. I'm happy to finally get around to trying out some Octavia E. Butler. But I don't think I gave you any sort of thoughts about Love in the Big City when I finished it. So Love in the Big City is a queer Korean book. So it is taking place in Seoul, and we're looking at this young queer guy, and we're seeing like kind of his, it's almost like a slice of life, but it's not really a slice of life, but we're looking at like a part of his life, and especially then his relationships with like his best friend, and then mainly with his romantic partners. And it was good, you know. I gave it like a 3 stars, maybe 3.5, but it's definitely not something that's gonna stick with me. And you know, ultimately, um, yeah, it didn't do too much for me neither. I enjoyed like the queer rep. I definitely enjoyed the fact of having an Asian queer book, because I don't think I have read a lot of books in translation that feature queer representation from the Asian world. And so I'm very happy to have stumbled upon one like that now. And I did really enjoy aspects to it, and I think that there were some really interesting things being talked about. But in terms of like the prompt, what I put it in for, which is country you would love to visit, I didn't get much of a sense of Korea through this book. For example, it definitely wasn't like, I'm sure for somebody familiar with Korea and Seoul, this is very much quintessentially a Seoul book, especially since like the translator also talks about, you know, like the sense of like familiarity he felt reading this book, because of his familiarity with Seoul. But for an outsider, there isn't too much in there that makes you kind of like go, oh yeah, this is Korea, and this is why I would love to visit Korea, for example. So specifically for the prompt, it was probably not the best choice. I probably were are much better books out there that really like give you that sort of like FOMO for being in a certain location or not. But yeah, I still had a good time with it, and I'm happy I got it done, because it's one of my books from my subscription for Tilted Access Press that I had 2 years ago or so. And so I have not gotten around to many of those, and I'm happy that I got around to one of those now at least. Um, but so yeah, I'm gonna give you an update on Parable of the Sower tomorrow. I don't know whether I'm gonna be doing much reading in it tomorrow, but in any case, tomorrow I'll be rounding off this vlog, because then it will have been 1 week since we started these adventures. I might like end it somewhere on Saturday, depends on whether I finish Parable of the Sower tomorrow or not. But I think completing Parable of the Sower, giving you the scoop on what is gonna be the next prompt, that is gonna be where I'm gonna end this vlog up. Alright, before I actually finish this book, I should totally talk about the book that I'm currently reading, which is Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. So this is a post-apocalyptic book in which we're looking at this world that has seen a lot of ecological disasters mainly. And so basically people are at this point in time poor. Water is a scarce commodity. And so people are kind of like, some people have it good in the sense that they are part of a community, and the community can kind of come together and protect one another from outside forces. However, there are people who have it worse than that. The poorer people, they will kind of be moving around trying to scavenge where possible, but also, of course, resorting to violence in order to get the means that they need in order to survive, but not necessarily always just to survive, because in these sort of trying times, for certain people especially, it kind of makes it kind of elevates the lawlessness and kind of makes for people to kind of become hunters looking for easy prey, and then kind of losing sight of the moral boundaries that would exist in our regular type of society. So I'm really enjoying it so far. Our character is sort of hypersensitive in the sense that when somebody is hurting around her, she will kind of take over those emotions. So she's actually just like a supreme empath, basically. And this also happens for Joy. Unfortunately, she just doesn't have a lot of joy in her world. And so we're kind of looking at her and kind of seeing how she's navigating this difficult, this tough, hard world, but also how she's kind of starting to look to the future and how she can potentially protect herself and the people she loves by gaining more knowledge. This one I'm reading specifically for the cannibalism prompt, and I have not come across it yet. I don't think so, because I'm listening to it, so I don't physically read it, and so potentially I've lost like sight of a moment like that. But I would love to imagine that. I would love to believe that I don't just mentally zone out during a cannibalism scene, you know? So I'm gonna assume it's still to come. There was like one scene, there's like something that happens to one character that we never really find out. Maybe between the lines, I'm supposed to understand that that is a cannibalist act taking place there or what. I don't think so though. So I'll continue on. When I finish, I will hopefully be able to tell you or have to look into what the cannibalism prompt refers to. Well, hello, if it isn't me in exactly the same position as I've been every single time I've updated you guys. But so, I have finished Parable of the Sower, meaning that after little over 1 week, because, it is the 8th, we started on the 1st of July. So, after a little over 1 week, I have scored 5 points? I'm unsure now what my score was. I think it's 5, like, right? I'm at 5? Yeah, I'm at 5. No, mind you, we start like at minus 15 because there are 15 penalty points to be taken. So I actually have a score of 20, but then I have a score of 19, but then with 14 penalty points, we get to a score of 5. So that puts me in a positive points for the first time this readathon. So I'm already happy. From now on, it'll just stay in the positives, and hopefully I can chip away at it a little bit longer. But so Parable of the Sower, I really enjoyed it a whole lot. I thought it was really interesting. It just doesn't end in the type of way that I typically enjoy. It ends open, sure, but I don't know. I think I like a little bit more doom and gloom in my endings, I guess. But so it did have cannibalism, not like direct, but we did come across some cannibals, and cannibalism, the word itself, was dropped as well at some point. So I'm gonna count it. It definitely had it, and so yeah, I'm very eager to read more of her stuff. Because I also received Kindred today. But so before I leave you guys for next week's vlog, I am going to lift a tip of the veil for next week's first reading prompt, which was Second Chance Author. So I'm reading a book by an author of whom I've DNF'd their most recent work. I have already seen the movie of this particular book. I loved the movie. I thought I was gonna love their books, but then that one told me no. But so hopefully, because this one doesn't have a particular sort of like trope that is in the book that I DNF'd, hopefully this one will work better for me. Somebody else is also currently reading it, so I can kind of co-read it with her. I can make it a little bit of a buddy read, and this does not have an orange cover in the edition that I have from the library, but the most well-known cover for this one does have an orange cover, and that is The Martian by Andy Weir. So I'm giving The Martian another go. It is one of the oldest books on my TBR, or like on my want to read list, because this one comes from the library. But so yeah, here we go. Let's give it a try, and you will find out my thoughts in next week's vlog. But yeah, with that, I'm gonna end this vlog. Hope you guys are enjoying GameNightAthon. Hope you guys had a fun time with week 1 so far. And yeah, see you guys on sprints in the Discord. And see you guys for next week's vlog. Bye!